You think you're losing arguments because you're not smart enough. That's a lie. You're losing because you're playing chess with someone who's flipping the board, throwing the pieces, and calling it a win. And the worst part? They actually believe they won. This isn't about intelligence. It's about something far more dangerous. Because the moment you step into an argument with the wrong person, you've already lost, not the argument, but something much more valuable. Your clarity, your energy, and slowly, your mind. 2. The hidden psychological problem. Most people think arguments are about truth. They're not. Arguments are rarely about truth. They're about identity. When someone argues aggressively, emotionally, irrationally, they're not defending facts, they're defending who they are. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because when a belief becomes part of someone's identity, challenging that belief doesn't feel like a discussion, it feels like an attack. Psychologically, this is called ego defense. The brain doesn't care if something is true. It cares if something feels safe. So when you present logic, evidence, or facts, their brain doesn't process it as information, it processes it as a threat. And when humans feel threatened, they don't become rational, they become defensive. They interrupt, they twist your words, they ignore your points, they raise their voice. Not because they're right, but because their mind is trying to survive. Now here's the brutal truth. You're trying to have a logical conversation with someone having an emotional reaction. Two completely different games. And logic cannot win against emotion when emotion feels like survival. 3. The consequences most people don't notice. At first, it seems harmless. Just a debate, just a disagreement, just a comment section argument. But pay attention to what happens after. You replay the conversation in your head. You think of better responses, too late. You feel irritated, drained, distracted. Hours pass, and somehow they're still living in your mind rent-free. That's the real cost. Not the argument, but the mental space they occupy. Over time, this becomes a pattern. You start proving yourself more, explaining more, defending more. You begin to believe that if you just say it better, they'll finally understand. But they won't. Because they're not trying to understand. They're trying to win. And winning for them doesn't mean truth. It means not feeling wrong. So what happens? You slowly shift your behavior. You become reactive, easily triggered, mentally exhausted. And worst of all, you start lowering your level of thinking just to match theirs. You simplify your ideas, not for clarity, but so they won't argue back. You hold back your thoughts. You second-guess yourself. All because you got trapped in conversations that were never meant to lead anywhere. This is how intelligent people quietly lose their edge. Not by being wrong, but by wasting their attention on the wrong battles. The awakening. At some point, something clicks. You realize, not every conversation deserves your participation. Not every opinion deserves your response, and not every person deserves access to your mind. This is where your power begins. Because the real skill is not winning arguments, it's choosing which ones to never enter. Think about it. A lion doesn't waste energy arguing with a dog. Not because the lion can't win, but because it's beneath its nature to engage. And this isn't arrogance, it's awareness. You start seeing patterns. The person who interrupts constantly, the one who ignores evidence, the one who shifts the topic when cornered, the one who gets louder instead of clearer. These are not signs of someone seeking truth. These are signs of someone protecting ego. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You stop trying to fix people. You stop trying to educate everyone. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Instead, you do something most people never learn. You withdraw strategically. You respond with silence, or a short sentence, or nothing at all. Not because you lost, but because you finally understand the game, and you refuse to play it. The final realization. Here's the truth no one tells you. Silence is not weakness. Silence is control. The strongest minds are not the ones that argue the most. They are the ones that know when an argument is a trap. Because every argument has a cost. Time, energy, focus. And your life is nothing more than where your attention goes. So ask yourself, is this person worth my attention? Is this conversation moving me forward? Or am I just feeding someone else's need to feel right? Because the moment you understand this, everything changes. You become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, harder to drain. And something else happens. Your thinking becomes sharper. Your mind becomes quieter. You stop reacting and start observing. And in that space, you gain something rare. Clarity. The kind of clarity that doesn't need validation. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. Because deep down, you already know. Truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to argue. It doesn't need to win debates to remain true. And once you understand that, you stop trying to convince the world and start protecting your mind.